Hello to everyone and welcome to a new Energy Capital interview. I'm Ana Tafoya, and today I'm very happy to introduce Karen Snyder, Managing Director and Producer with TYM Studio, a lecturer of digital media at the University of Houston. Karen will talk with us today about the increasing interest companies are showing to extended reality technologies, the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic in their advancement, and the benefits companies in and outside the energy sector can obtain from implementing them. Karen, it's very nice to see you today. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Karen. So I'll start with the first question. What is extended reality and how is it different from augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality?
Well, extended reality, otherwise known as XR, is really an umbrella term, and it helps to encapsulate all those realities into one, and was really kind of brought about by industry players because it's a real mouthful when you say VR, AR, MR in a sentence and trying to encapsulate it all. So it allows us to highlight that we are speaking towards virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. And to be clear, they are different types of technology. So virtual reality, when you put on a headset, you don't see the world around you. It's 360, you're fully immersed, you're listening. And it is different than, say, augmented reality, which a lot of people are used to because you hold up your phone, you put a filter in Instagram, and ta-da, that's augmenting your reality. And so most people think of augmented reality as well, especially with video games with Pokemon Go. Mixed reality was really brought about through Microsoft and their HoloLens. That is another headset, but when you put that one on, you still do see the world around you, but you can engage with haptic feedback and some other points such as hand gestures and voice, and in addition, other haptic feedback with full suits and other gears coming up for more virtual reality.
From your perspective, Karen, in what ways has the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the transition of several industries to the XR trend?
Well, the pandemic really brought it about that we are moving from a physical space to a virtual space. And when you think of the virtual space and what is occurring, and how we are engaging, especially with communication, well, because we were separated, we had to find other ways to enhance our communication. So obviously we've seen the trends with video conferencing has skyrocketed, but this has basically impacted people to say, hey, I want the next level. What's the next level that I can engage in? There's great to, if you will, passively view and at least have some means of communication, but can't we do more together? And this, of course, really highlights how the video game industry impacts this question. The video game industry is about playing together, doing together, exploring together. And in a serious use case, it is about how do we train together? How do we do sales together? How do we market together? How do we communicate together? And that is where, of course, COVID has really pushed us and pressed us to consider new avenues that haven't usually been actively explored in most business sectors as of late.
What are some of the benefits of the use of XR, and how could these advantages get reflected in the workplace?
When you think about what your brain is doing, it's connecting synapses. Even as I speak, you're processing different points of information flows. And when we talk about communication, what we're trying to do, technology at the end of the day is about how can it engage with our brains processing information flow. And when we have different elements of visuals, auditory, kinesthetic, touch, and reading words, that lights up different parts of our brain. And the more that your brain lights up, especially through surprise and discovery, which is basically chemical rushes going on in the brain, then the better the memory. And of course, when you're thinking about training or teaching or communicating, the whole point is, hey, how can I brand your brain? How can you remember something I say? How can you act on something I say or do or experience? And this is now where it gets very exciting because when you get into a virtual reality environment, you're now fully immersed in a situation that could be very difficult to feel when you're just doing a video and you're passively watching. So this is where, when you consider what your brain is trying to do to process this, why your brain gets so excited and happy when it has more visuals, more auditory, more ways to explore. And that leads to greater memory retention, which is what we all want when we're trying to communicate.
Yeah, that's right. It's a learning process. So in your opinion, how could energy companies leverage the XR trend?
Most energy companies right now, when it comes to virtual reality or augmented or mixed reality, are focusing in on training sectors. This is actually not just the energy field. It's really a trend across all business sectors. So they want cheaper prices for training, and especially when you don't have a physical environment you could put people in because of this past year. Well, then how do we keep folks moving forward, especially in their learning? And when you're talking about not being able to bring people out to a specific rig, or they're on hard, heavy duty equipment and they need to be trained on these things, well, just the insurance costs alone get to be savings when you can go through, have potential accidents or scenarios that are high risk, but without actually involving the physical component. So this is a savings factor, and it is a better training factor because, again, because you're an immersive and because you're doing, you'll have greater memory retention statistically. So this brings about a better training environment.
Yes, and you have more opportunities to fail.
Exactly. This is why if we go back in time to this is why the Air Force, and it started originally back in the 50s, very, very early rudimentary flight simulations. Well, it makes sense, right? You don't want to get in the airplane and crash the freaking airplane. So instead, same with NASA, you don't want to get into the space, whatever vehicles and or rovers, and train and potentially mess up and ruin millions of dollars of equipment. It's cheaper to do simulations, hence why, again, NASA and the Air Force were one of the first.
And from your experience, what have been some of the benefits of implementing XR technologies in the medical and healthcare sector?
Well, here's an example. When we ran the Healthcare Games Showdown, which was a showdown in 2019, where students were working with professional mentors to create video games for healthcare for Texas Children's Hospital, AT&T, and Mount Sinai Hospital. It has to do with how can we engage and increase outcomes? And a lot of this is patients not following through. So when you consider that patients need that motivation to get to their recovery, then this is a great way where you've seen how video games, just the traditional entertainment types, that are inducing people to want to involve themselves. So we're taking those types of mechanics and leveraging them for patient outcomes. Then you have training issues. This again was very much exacerbated because of COVID. Example, surgical residents can't finish their degrees because they're not able to be taught in person because of limitations inside hospitals. Well, how can we then see that they can actually finish their degree? Well, let's get them involved in at least some elements. Now, you still have to, of course, have real people and real places. You can't finish your entire residency on digital, but think of the ways that you could handle your surgery training. You can handle your immersive tracks, and you are able to at least keep your degree going and then finish your residency accordingly.
So, Karen, finally, could you tell us about TYM's collaborative work in Houston to teach XR development?
TYM, which is, we usually just call it TYM Studio, is all about ways to involve young talent in paid internships for technology and media. So we have to produce several different showdowns. So the Healthcare Game Showdown, which was directed at doing video games for healthcare. And then our second one last year, which was kindly presented by ExxonMobil, had to do with virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality for serious use. So the students and young talent were all involved with the professional mentors and getting paid work to do various enterprise simulations. And then in addition, we've continued to accelerate to have a lot of other internships, which has been totally fantastic, and in many other ways, whether it be websites in addition to apps, in addition to other video games that have to do with ways that we can propel young talent to do amazing things, especially for various enterprise.
Well, Karen, thank you very much for sharing this information and insights with us. I don't know, do you want to share your final take on this?
You know what? It's an exciting time, and a lot of people are very galvanized. And we've had such an amazing, great group of various companies, professors that we've had the opportunity to work with in ExxonMobil through the digital garage with Kyle Duarte and they've been fantastic. And there's so much going on in this industry. So I encourage everyone to be aware of trends that can bring value to them. And again, this is really primarily how can technology bring about better communications? That's for all of us.